Hi guys, so today we are going to discuss RESTful Web Services. So today is the introduction session where we can see how the RESTful Web Services came into the market. So actually by using Java, we can develop three types of applications. One is like standalone, and another is web application, and another is distributed applications. So like, what is standalone applications? Actually, the standalone applications is nothing but which is running on only one system. Nothing but is like running on our system, such as like notepad or eclipse ide or a calculator. Such type of applications are called as standalone applications. And the applications which runs over internet is called as web applications, such as like our Facebook, Flipkart, Gmail. These applications are called as web application where we can see a user interface. However, we can see the user interface in standalone applications also, but that applications is installed in our system. But whereas web applications are installed remotely, which is running on the server remotely, and we are just accessing that application through HTTP protocol, which is nothing but like request response. And when coming to the distributed applications, the applications which are communicating with other applications are called as distributed applications, such as like we have an application such as like passport application where we will like access the details of our Aadhaar, or I can say SSN. So SSN details will be verified while you're applying for a new passport or renewal for a new passport. They will verify your SSN details. So they will communicate to through SSN application, then only they can verify that details. So same thing like for our like GrubHub application, we are interacting with the banking while we are placing the order. GrubHub application will interact with our bank when we are entering the credit card details. And we have like make my trips, which are basically contacting to the airlines API and get the details. So to develop distributed applications, we have like different kind of technologies available. So initially we have like Corba, then it has been evolved to RMI, then we have developed EJB, then web services, then finally right now trending in the market is RESTful services. So how RESTful services came into picture, why RESTful services, why we are using RESTful services, what are the advantages of that, and what are the disadvantages in previous approaches, so that RESTful comes into picture, we will see now in the following points. So WS1, that is web service one, is an organization provided BP1 1.0 specification to develop distributed applications with interoperability. So where we are, yeah. So Corba it stands for Common Object Resource Broker Architecture. In Corba, we have the concept of interface definition language, where we should start development with the ideal, then we should convert ideal file into language specific file. So once that language specific file is created, then we should write business logic. So as it is forcing us to learn ideal interface definition language, people are not happy with it. So finally, to overcome those problems of Carba, RMI technology came into the market to develop distributed applications. As I said, distributed applications is a application which are accessing other application to develop its business logic. Example is like passport application where it is interacting with the SSN server, or I can say make my trip is also an application or example of a distributed application which where they are accessing airlines server. So basically, when coming to the RMI stand for remote method invocation. So after developing applications using RMI, we should deploy that application into RMI server. So RMI server will not only provide, excuse me. So RMI server actually doesn't have like been that much into the market because it has some issues. It doesn't have built-in connection pooling feature, it doesn't have security feature, it doesn't have transaction management feature. So if we are using an RMI server, so we have to develop all these services like connection pooling, security, transaction management. And not only this, but we also have to take care of the application logic and infrastructure logic also. So as RMI servers are not providing much support for development, it got vanished from the market. So to overcome these problems, EJB came into the market. So initially Corba, then RMI, then third one is the EJB. So EJB stands for Enterprise Java Beans. It is one of the powerful technology developed by Sun Microsystem. So EJB introduced container and container managed objects kind of concept there. And so if we develop distributed applications using EJB, then there are no issues of like connection pooling, security, or transaction management. It has provided all those features. But EJB failed to provide interoperability. So what is interoperability? I mean, we can see here what is interoperability. In simple true terms, we can say interoperability means language independent and platform independent. So language independent, what does that mean? That means if one application is communicating with another application, irrespective of the language and irrespective of the platform, then those applications are called as interoperable applications. So the definition says itself language independent. What does that mean? That means any Java app, if communicating with the .NET app, or if any .NET app is communicating with the Python app, if any Python app is communicating with the PHP app, or if any PHP app is communicating with the Java app. So these are some examples how they two different applications are written in two different languages are communicating with each other. This is called language independent. So suppose like our Java application for I mean our make my trip applications is developed in Java, and our SSN applications is developed in .NET. So if they both want to communicate with each other, there is nothing there at that time in the market through which they both can communicate. So in industry, people are looking for developing distributed applications with interoperability. So there is no technology available which can provide this interoperability. So coming to platform independent means suppose this Java application is running on a Windows machine and this .NET application is running on some Linux machine. So they both have different operating systems. They if they have, then also they are not able to communicate with each other because they have different side collection of rules to communicate if we are communicating in between two different operating systems. So group of software experts from different companies form one non-profitable organization called as WS. one, or I can say, which is nothing but called as Web Service 1. So Web Service 1 stands for Web Services Interoperability. This organization goal is to identify the common rules that everybody should follow to achieve interoperability. So after a lot of research, finally they have made some rules, or they identified some rules to achieve this interoperability feature. So what they have done is they have identified the rules, and they have documented that rules, which is nothing but a specification document, and release that specification into the market as BP 1.0 specification document. So whatever all the all the programming languages who want to communicate with different web applications which are written in different programming languages, or which is on the different platform, then they should start following BP 1.0 specifications in order to achieve interoperability. So Sun Microsystem also supported for BP 1.0 specification and released JAX RPC API to develop web services, basically, which means that two different applications can communicate with each other by following these specification rules. So if our application is written in Java, so it should be according to the JAX RPC API. Then we can communicate with any other communication in the internet, which can be written in any language, or which can be on the any platform. Platform means operating system. So JAX RPC stands for Java API for XML remote procedure call. So as BP1 got success, WS1 have find out some flaws in that, and some issues in their specification document of the BP 1.0, and then they later modified and updated it and released BP 1.1 specification with the new rules. So Sun Microsystems supported for BP 1.1 specification also through a new API called as JAX WS API to develop those web services. So basically, Sun Microsystem has given two APIs, one for BP 1.0 and another for BP 1.1. For BP 1.0, they have given, uh, what is that name? Yeah, that name is JAX RPC API, and for 1.1 they have given JAX WS API. JAX RPC stand for Java application, Java API for XML, remote procedure call API, and another one is Java API for XML, web service API. So if we develop a web service using one of the above API, then that web service is called as SOAP-based web service. So SOAP-based web service are usually use XML configuration in order to interact with the other web service. So when coming to the next points, for BP 1.0 specifications, Sun Microsystem released JAX RPC API. As successor of BP 1.0, WS1 released BP 1.1 specification. So BP 1.1 specification, Sun Microsystem released JAX WS API. In Java, we can develop web services in two ways. One is JAX RPC API, and another one is JAX WS API. So if we develop a web service using JAX RPC or JAX WS, then it is called as SOAP-based web service. JAX RPC API and JAX WS API. In web service architecture, two actors usually will be involved. One is producer and another one is consumer. Producer application will provide business services to other application. Consumer application will access business services from other applications. So once provider deployment is completed, provider will share WSDL file to consumer. So between provider and consumer, there is one file called as WSDL. So once provider application has been completed, it will provide a WSDL file to the consumer. Then consumer will read that file and start their application development, and then they can access the business services from other application, which is nothing but the provider, or I can say the I mean the factory kind of design pattern used here, producer consumer. So producer will produce and they will provide the visual file to the consumer, and then consumer will start their, after only getting the visual file they can start their development and they can access the producer service. So once producer development is completed, provider will share visual file to consumer. Visual stands for Web Services Description Language. It contains details of the provider. Consumer will take the visual and will start consuming development. I mean the consumer development. Without visual cannot consume start development, as I said. So once consumer development is completed, consumer can send request to provider and provider will access the request and will send response back to the consumer. Consumer and provider will communicate with SOAP request. SOAP stand for Simple Object Access Protocol. So there are two services, web services, which is called as SOAP based web services. One is JAX RPC and another one is JAX WS. These two are called as SOAP based web services. Usually SOAP based web services are communicated through XML usually. So they have some issues actually. From where we are coming, according to the history, we have to read the ideal, then have to specify our roles according to our language, then we can start development in Corba. Where is the Corba? Right here is the Corba, right? This is the issue with the Corba. What is the issue with RMI? They are able to communicate with each other through a remote server, but that remote server doesn't have transaction management facility or connection pooling facility. So by default they are not getting that facility. So for every application they have to do it manually. So it is kind of a lot of time consuming, so the cost is increasing. That's why EJB came into the picture. EJB has a container kind of environment, so they are providing inbuilt transaction management and connection pooling concept like this. So they have overcome all the issues coming from the RMI, but they are not supporting interoperability. Interoperability means what? Interoperability means it should be a platform independent, and it should be language independent. So that's the issue with, I mean, EJB. So that's why some tech technical experts have built an organization called as WS1, and they have given some specification document called as BP 1.0. So in that specification documents, they have defined some rules. By following those rules, two different applications which are written in different technologies and which are running on the different platforms can communicate with each other. So Sun Microsystem has also developed an API by following those specification BP 1.0. So that is called as JAX RPC, right? JAX RPC means Java, yeah, yeah. I mean to say JAX RPC. Then for 1.1, they have developed JAX WS. So this is about the two APIs which have been developed according to the specifications BP 1.0 and 1.1. So they are also called as SOAP based web services. They are basically communicating in XML, but they also have some issues. They have not provided interoperability with respect to data and adaptability. So they don't have adaptability. I mean, they are only can be communicated through XML, that is called interoperability with respect to data. Means we can't communicate or we can't send the data or receive the data apart from XML. We can't send or receive the data in any other format. That is one, and adaptability is the another issue. So he identified principles followed by internet and he analyzed those issues. And finally, he came to know that if we follow the same principle in our applications, then everybody can access our applications also easily, just like internet services. So Royal Field released those principles into the market and saying that as REST architecture principles. So web services are of two kind. One is like according to the Java, they have given JAX RPC, and another one is JAX WS. They are also called as SOAP based web services, and they have some issues. One is interoperability with respect to data, and another one is adaptability. That's why Roy Fielding has identified those issues and have given some principles to overcome these issues, and call those principles are called as restful services. So rest, by following those rest architecture principles, Sun Microsystem has like supported and released one API called as JAX RS API into the market to develop restful services using Java. So first they supported those specification document called as JAX RS. I mean, first one is JAX RPC, then came into the picture JAX WS, and they has also some issues. That's why JAX RS came into the picture. JAX RS means Java API for XML RESTful services. Using RESTful services, we can develop application with 100% adaptability and 100% inter interoperability and adaptability. So by using these JAX RS API, we can overcome these two issues also. So this is nothing but about like a little bit history of like how RESTful services came into the picture, what is that before that. And initially it was Corba, then it was like RMI, then it was like EJB, then Web Services has JAX RPC, then JAX WS. And coming to the Java point of view, Web Services have JAX RPC and JAX WS. Then they have JAX RS, which is nothing but RESTful services. So that's all for today, guys. I mean, we have seen about the history, how the RESTful web services came into the picture, what are the issues with the previous technologies. So in the upcoming videos, we will see what is RESTful services, I mean in detail, and what is the architecture of that, and what are the concepts in Java to write RESTful web services. So we will see all those features in the coming videos. Thank you. Thanks for your time. See you in the next video.